Years ago, I was introduced to the delicious concept of Milky Way mapping. Back then, it was more academic, but today it's a powerful tool being discussed more and more in enterprise architecture. It's used to create shared understanding, support strategic decisions, and accelerate change. The person best positioned to explain this is one of its creators, Annika Klyver. She developed this tool out of a recognizable frustration. So let's learn about her journey and how we can start using delicious Milky Way mapping in our organizations. Do you want to sharpen your skills as an enterprise architect? Welcome to Verbonden, the podcast where we combine insights from experienced professionals with real-world examples from the world of architecture. My name is Elise Luyckx, and I am your guide through the layers of enterprise architecture, making it less mythical and more concrete. You were introduced to me as the person who invented, co-invented the Milky Way map.
Yeah.
I assume that you're not only that. Could you just take me through your career path and your development path shortly?
Yeah, sure. I started out actually in business administration, organization finance, and those type of topics. And I also combined my training with East European studies in Russian. But this is back in '93, so I'm a bit old, but at that time there was this enthusiasm about what could happen and so on. So there was a lot of interest in trying to see if we could tie closer ties to that market. But and then I started to work in a small company with a lot of things going on on the Russian market. But I worked with finance and bookkeeping and stuff like that. And but it felt like even back then it was a bit different compared to just working within the Scandinavian European part. So I changed to working more with it was actually one thing at that company that made me sort of turn into this entirely. It was when they were changing EPR systems, and I understood how they were setting it up. I haven't even thought of somebody sets those systems up, but then I realized that they were configuring it, and it was really done poorly. And I was like, why are you doing this in that way? And they were surprised that I had any, thoughts on it. And that kind of sparked me into, after a couple of, different steps at the beginning of the careers, at least for me, I ended up in parts of the .com boom in Stockholm. The .com boom in Stockholm, and that turned everybody almost into IT people, or kind of business IT. And that had really made me move into the notion of that you can actually design things, or at the time, I don't think we used design, but we said you can create things that aren't there yet in terms of new market models or at that time it was a lot of portals and e-businesses and those type of things.
But were you morely focusing, because you were like a business expert, so to speak, more or less, then you peeked behind, there's software here, and then you became more interested in the business architecture part of... Yeah,
I think you can kind of call it like that, because at that time everybody was an expert. It was a bit of a weird... Things were moving so fast that you could do things in larger scales than in other types of economies, you could say. But I quite quickly realized that there needs to be this larger structure upon which you then build. And I didn't have the word for it being architecture, but I met up with some more sort of experienced people, and they showed me how you could do parts of these things. And that slowly merged into me going into more like enterprise planning or portfolio things. And then and this is maybe a too long story. You can cut it if it doesn't fit.
Normally we don't cut it. So it's
Okay.
always a one-take video.
Then we so then I moved into sort of portfolio planning, that type of thing. But after a while in that type of business, I realized it doesn't matter if you don't have a structure that you base the portfolios and changes on. And then I found enterprise architecture because. And I also found a company in Sweden working with that called IRM.
Yeah.
And I joined them in like 2009 or something.
Okay.
And then I got this basis for what is actually architecture and what is this.
Where were you at that point? What were you doing when you discovered enterprise architecture this is something?
This is something. Well, you know, I had the two children at the time, and I actually spent 1 year studying psychology during one of my maturity leaves because I thought that now I have economy and that business point of view, I have kind of figured out parts of the IT things, but there is something lacking. There is the sense-making, cognition, perception, motivation, work, psychology things, and that year really got me into this sweet spot between all these different things. And now looking at what we're having in the edgy and the intersection community, it is basically more of those things combined, which I was really looking for at the time, but there was no one really thinking like this at the time.
Yeah.
But then I moved into sort of doing consultancy, and I actually spent almost 12 years teaching business architecture and enterprise architecture to the Swedish sort of architect community. And with that, I also started to develop new ways of doing it, because I thought the way we split things, you have one way of looking at process, one of application, one of information, and then a third or whatever regarding strategies and portfolios. It's just such a mess.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to sort of get their own ideas of each perspective, when in reality they're always combined. So when I combined sort of my quest for understanding how we can do this better, and also capabilities came along like 2012 or 2013 something, and it so beautifully came together. Well, what if we just flip it and we make one map where you can represent all the different aspects? And that is kind of how this Milky Way mapping thing was born.
Yeah. Taking you back to that time, were you already working at Scania?
No,
then?
I was.
You were consulting?
I was working at the company called TUI. It's a travel. I think you have it here as well.
They're well known.
Yeah, and I worked in the Nordic part of that sort of big company, and doing enterprise architecture. But also there were big changes going on, and we tried to do different overviews and different sort of ways of thinking. And I don't know, I just got so frustrated. There needs to be a better way. So we started together with a guy called Daniel. It's like I'm the mother and he's the father. We kind of joke sometimes.
Can I just take you back before?
Sure.
Because you said that you were struggling with what were you struggling? What was a key frustration there?
Yeah, the key frustration was the amount of energy we needed to put into getting people to connect the dots.
Yeah.
Because we had this process view, we had applications, and we had information models, or at least concepts of what are the big thing. And then Agile rolled in. Yeah. And they started with this Agile transformation and so on. And then you would have flows and teams. It is just how much can we keep in our head? So if we, from an architecture point of view, can combine and sort of restructure what we have, so we still sort of honor the different aspects, but in a smarter way. Yeah. So that's how this came about.
Okay, so how did this start? You're going to build something that integrates all the viewpoints, the aspects?
Yeah, and it's, I mean, now looking at it, I don't know how I just did it. And we started, but we also came from this, there was this large transformation of a number of big IT platforms that needed to change, and we need to understand the business impacts and so on. So we kind of mapped all the applications in this diagram as a flow. So that what do you do when you do planning? What do you do when you do pricing, introduction, throughout the entire sort of cycle?
You used Archimate for that? Or
we used Visio.
Visio. Okay.
Yeah, and everybody says, can you do Visio? And I said,
Okay.
yeah, when you get one stable map, it doesn't change that often.
Okay.
It's just when you try to redo them over and over again, then it gets, you think that you're redoing it. But this way of modeling, it just, my experience is at least it gets more stable, so things stay where they are once you get the right geography.
Yeah, okay. So you started with the applications and then
sort of grouping them into capabilities. But we did a lot of experiments. I had a hand draw version of the same sort of flow, a bit like some drawings, some people flying, really not ugly, but it's really simple hand drawn things that represented the different parts. So we worked with all the different levels of how you can sort of or share this notion of a geography in this. So it was not just diagrams with applications, it was also like these drawings or stories and so on. So it was quite we did a lot of things there.
Because when I look at the Milky Way map, you send me an example as well, you find it online. I tend to look at the center almost always, but like you describe it right now, it's more from the outside. Well, from looking at in the drawing, you talk about the outside layer. It's the first thing. How did you land on the center actually? When did that come in?
It was actually when. It was combined, because to me and to the people that were working with this, we were going around and talk to the different parts of the organization, so we know now we're in sales, now we're in this, now we're in that, and so on, and also the IT sort of equivalent of those colleagues. So we had this entire story in our heads, but when we shared it, we shared a diagram. And so people were like, a lot of dots and a lot of, and I said, we need to press play in this one. We need to start to tell a story so that people understand how things are moving. And then adding some more, maybe sort of, making it tangible with the core stories and the different sort of what does this sector actually represent. Then we needed to have some more text. And we did a lot of presentations to present this type of thinking. But it was kind of hard because it was so different compared to others. So a number of times we got this interesting, but nobody else is doing it. And that's the challenges with new things, of course, because nobody had thought of it like this. So,
It's also that what I hear what I hear coming back from your stories, you tend to, as an enterprise architect, you map the systems and you map the capabilities. And then you actually use the map to go to other stakeholders who speak a different language and they see, yes, we see your drawing, we notice you're an architect. And that's like their conclusion from it. So you actually added layers to service these kind of stakeholders?
Yeah, and this is the interesting thing, because currently at the same time I also met up with Milan, who at the time didn't have Edgy, but they had this notion of different facets. So I was in the architecture facet when it comes to how we would talk about it today with Edgy, and he represented a strong experience sort of perspective. And of course there were customers, but we didn't really tangibly draw the customer journey and so on. So after a while, with his input and others' inputs as well, we added on the core map also the customer journeys. And potentially maybe supplier journeys that you would need in the beginning in order for us to be able to sort of deliver the services that we want. And so it's really, it grew with conversations. And I also did a lot of, as I said, enterprise architecture training. So I met a lot of people and I represented it to a lot of people. So I got a lot of feedback and sort of cheers, but also this is so far from where we are. We can't really, how do we start? But that has matured.
You added layers to talk, to be able to have different stakeholders from a company represented or see their viewpoint. I did hear that it's also the CFO has his own layer, so to speak, or which stakeholders do you generally include?
We try to. It depends on how big a company you're working in. Sometimes you get access to those type of sort of management levels, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
But you could present this to a CFO or CEO or something, or you could present the results of the budgets that has been done or the investments that has been done to the layer that I'm active in, and then with this knowledge that could either confirm that we're on the right way or trigger discussions. Saying this doesn't seem like we're doing the right things that would be agreed upon or that the expectations are. So it's really a conversation opener, you could say, or kind of making things transparent.
And to include, for example, the CFO in this example, what kind of elements do you tend to include in the Milky Way map to have the stakeholder on board?
It kind of depends on from what angle you come, but this very basic overview with sort of where are we spending our money? If we say that we have an investment budget of changes in our landscape, which I sometimes refer the map to, sort of our enabling landscape is kind of what the Milky Way is, and then we're saying that we want to sort of improve the customer experience. That means we ought to invest a lot of things here in the capabilities and system support and so on, but we're spending all our money here. Is this wisely compared to what the strategy would sort of tell us to be? So
that's kind of, when you have the map, you create this kind of overlay which gives insights. For example, in which areas of this Milky Way map are a lot of projects or a lot of investments.
So I had read this example where I did a really sort of work together with another colleague. It's many years, let's say it's 8 years ago or something, but we were taken into a company that had problems. They weren't really getting the feedback, the return on investment that they wanted, and they had this feeling of everything is just stuck. We can't really do anything. And then after sketching a really fast Milky Way, sort of what is it, like 5 or 6 sectors, that's sort of the steps, you could say, in the map. And then we projected the projects. And then we realized that all the projects that they were running were going towards one capability area. And it's like, you can't change a part of the organization with 8 different angles. You need to, this work in progress principle. You do one thing and then you do the next instead of trying to cram 8 change projects to one part of the organization at the same time. And to me, I was amazed that they hadn't really seen through that. But apparently they hadn't, because the changes came from different budgets and different angles. But everybody, of course, wanted to be closest to the customer portal or whatever, customer interface. And we helped them fairly quickly with just sort of removing 3 or 4 of those projects, and then there was a discussion on priority. So those are things that you get when with these sort of fairly quickly overview.
So the visualization helped to see that there's a lot of pressure to change projects in a certain department or on the customer interface How does using the Milky Way mapping change how the organization makes decisions, for example?
Currently, in the situation I am now, I was employed by Scania until mid-summer, and then we all moved into a new company called Triton R&D, which is the sort of combination of Scania, MAN, and international R&D organizations. And I'm part of an enabling team, or support processes in IT, you could call it. For simple, so everybody knows where I am, and we have been also through an agile journey with a lot of we're setting up sort of value creation teams with flows and all of these things, and in this big transformation, we have been able to combine this agile planning with the Milky Way sort of sectors. So every time we do our PI plannings, we are referring to one of the sectors when it comes to an improvement. So if somebody wants to do an improvement, then we relate it to, does it have to do with portfolio management, development, introduction, or the order to delivery flow? So this is sort of forming our way of understanding the changes that we need. And the teams that are working towards the improvements, they do not necessarily need to be one-on-one with the sectors. You can have different structures for the teams because there could be technology things that makes you want to keep them in a setting that might not have a one-on-one on the capabilities in the Milky Way. So it's this, we are using this type of thinking in our planning and in our deliverables, which is really making them stick faster than the other example I showed, which was really fast. And then I don't know if they still remember it, but that solved one problem. Now we're building more sustainable way of thinking in this way.
All right. It's clear to me how you can help the organization see things and steer the organization even. This was only the first part of my conversation with Annika. In the second part, she will explain how you can get started with the Milky Way map. See you then. Many thanks to Pieter-Jan Rombout for producing and editing, and to Lennart Busset for the intro music. And of course, thank you for listening, and see you next time.